Nathan, when I look back several months and looking forward to 2021, I didn't expect that we would be talking about a full-on 2021 heavy-duty diesel truck war.
It's strange. I thought that at the most one automaker, truck maker, would actually up the game, but they're all upping their game.
Yes, and we're talking about, of course, one-ton trucks, three-quarter pickup trucks, diesel and gas. And Nathan, like you're saying, manufacturers are increasing power numbers, increasing towing numbers, capability. So in this video or in this podcast, I want to actually count down, what they've done. And we're talking about the big three, of course, right?
Yes, of course.
Ford, GM, and Ram. And actually go through some of the numbers, not all of them, because if we did, we would be here for 5 hours.
Yeah, it would take forever. We're trying to get this done in less than an hour.
And of course, kind of see where this leads us, and also where it leads us, I hope, is that actually we're getting some of these trucks within a few months and actually running them up and down the Ike Gauntlet.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, the Ike Gauntlet is our special worldwide recognized test. And it is one of the toughest towing tests that you can possibly throw at a truck because we're talking high elevation, steep grades, hard braking, maximum loads. And we do it every year. We've been doing it for 7 years now?
Yeah, pretty much. So let's kick off the TFL Talking Trucks.
Congratulations, you have now tuned into TFL Talk, where we discuss everything automotive, whether it's cars or trucks. This is the one place where you can be sure to get independent and honest reviews. Let's get back to the show right now.
All right, dude. So to do this, how about we go alphabetically?
Okay.
Every manufacturer has those banners, those big banners that say we're the best in class, we are the best ever. Well, first of all, we have to be very careful. If I misquote one number, one digit, people will reach out from inside the camera.
Or through their listening device.
And they will strangle me.
Well, let's face it, the truck world, especially with serious truck fans, is one of the most competitive out there, and it's also one of the most passionate. It is very difficult to get a Ford guy to like Chevy. It's very difficult to get a GM person to like Ram. And, the bottom line is it's like religion and politics, pickup trucks and sports, I'd say.
Yeah.
It's right up there with those.
And actually, we focus on trucks.
Yes.
Yes, so no politics or religion.
No, hell no. No way.
So anyway, let's dive in with Chevrolet alphabetically once again,
alphabetically.
right? Okay. So for 2021, Chevy came out, and this came out actually a couple months ago, this news. And they're upgrading their ratings. So let's start first with the banner rating, right? The stuff that they market. And then I want to touch on a couple more things because most people buy actually crew cab four-wheel drive trucks.
Yeah, that's their most popular.
And also what's more popular is actually 3/4 ton trucks. So I want to touch on all that stuff. So for 2021, GM, Chevrolet and GMC upped their total diesel 1-ton rating to 36,000 pounds.
Now that is a specific trim, that is a specific model, and they did that. I think they changed the tires and wheels and a few other things, right?
Yeah, so I was asking I actually was emailing with the PR department at GM, as we do with any manufacturer,
Yes.
trying to understand this. And they talked about doing some suspension changes and wheel and tire package changes.
Right.
So this is how close this is. I mean, this goes down to the tire pressures, the tire manufacturer, the wheel and the brakes and the suspension and all that stuff.
Right.
So they upped it from 35.5, where they were in 2020. They increased it by about 500 pounds. And that's a that's a diesel Duramax truck, short cab, two-door, obviously long bed, dually, with a diesel.
Okay, so that is absolutely their maximum number. They've increased it by 500 pounds. That is pretty significant. I mean, that is a big jump.
Dude, that's that's well above CDL territory.
Yes.
Right? Technically, gross combined weight of 26,000 or above is commercial driver license territory.
That's provided that you're not towing an RV.
Yes.
Which is a whole different other thing.
Yeah, we should do a show about that because motorhomes and RV trailers are exempt in a lot of states.
Which is crazy.
But some people actually tell us that you can actually get, depending on the state, you can actually get pulled over and questioned if you're towing like a big fifth wheel camper. Like, like commercial questions actually do you have a permit, or do you have this, or do you have a fire extinguisher? Do you have additional equipment?
Could you imagine Mr. Truck getting pulled over and the type of hell he'd put that poor officer through?
Well, I
Are
don't
you
know.
kidding me? I got my license, and here it is right here, and I got my boots on and everything else. I got a hat on. Oh, what are you talking about? Yeah, you get out there and dance.
Well, I don't know. I think it would have a good conversation,
It
actually.
would be an interesting conversation. I'd like to be a fly on the wall.
Of course, Mr. Truck, Ken Sundling, does have a CDL.
Yes.
And that's why, you see him a lot on TFL Truck when we're doing heavy trucks.
Yes, and hopefully in the near future, Mr. Truck Jr., that being Andrei Smirnov, will be getting one shortly. Am I right?
Yeah, I'm working on it. I got my renewed permit. I passed my written test. And within 2 weeks, actually in February of 2021, I'm going to school.
Yes, which is fantastic.
I'm going to school.
And we will cover that in another podcast, but let's get back to this.
Yeah, so now we have to talk a little bit about power.
Right.
So GM is offering two engines. They're both 6.6 liter V8s. It's very confusing. So we get emails asking us about 6.6 liter trucks.
Right.
We're like, are you talking about gas or diesel? So anyway, so the diesel engine, of course, is a 445 horsepower and 910 pound-feet of torque rating.
It's a Duramax, eh?
It's a Duramax. It's V8, of course, and a 10-speed. That's the new transmission.
Now, this transmission is it in-house?
No, that's it gets a little tricky here, right?
Okay.
So it's an Allison branded GM transmission. It's really heavy duty, right? It's very strong.
Right.
But it's Allison branded. And
Branded.
the reason why I say that is because technically Allison is now a separate company. They used to be the same.
Right.
Now they're a separate company from General Motors. And GM actually kind of designed the transmission, gave it to them at Allison, and Allison people tested it and verified it.
So they signed off on it, but it's not built by Allison,
As far as I know, dude.
as far as we know.
Yeah, it may be in the same building, different offices. I have no idea.
But in essence, is a General Motors built transmission that Allison said, okay, yeah, we signed off on it. It is
Yeah,
good enough.
and actually, technically, Allison has another transmission for similar type weight classes.
Right.
It's a 9-speed. So they're actually developing a separate. So it can get confusing, but Allison has had a name, through decades actually in time for major, big trucks, school buses, fire trucks. They're really well known and well respected. So that transmission is pretty stout. And so then let's talk about the crew cab truck. If you're watching this on TFL Talk, our YouTube channel, you can also see a few images behind me here. So let's talk about the rating now for a crew cab 4-wheel drive dually.
Which is one of the more popular models that they will sell.
Yeah, because you can advertise 36,000 pounds all day long.
Right, but that is a completely different truck than the one that's over there.
So I looked up all the numbers. For GM in a crew cab 4-wheel drive, the number is 31,180 pounds. That's the rating. But consider this, dude. That's still a heck of a lot of weight.
Oh my God, yeah, especially considering the fact that we're talking about a truck that can hold a lot of people, that can, that has 4-wheel drive. There's a lot of extra drag, a lot of extra weight because you have a larger cab. I mean, it's a completely different truck.
Yeah, and actually, well, we're based in Colorado here,
Yes.
right? But no matter where you are, let's say you're moving a piece of equipment, like pictured here, right? A John Deere tractor or something on the back of the trailer.
Right.
If you get bogged down in mud, what are you going to do?
I actually, just the other day, I saw a guy down the street who had an old dually rear drive, and he was screwed because he was trying to get through like this backyard area, which connects to a green patch. Anyway, the point is that it's a large green area, and he got completely bogged down, and he just didn't have his front wheels trying to pull him out of it, right? Yeah. And I was looking at that thinking, I wonder, if he's thinking in the back of his mind, man, I should have gotten a 4-wheel drive.
He probably was.
I'm sure he was.
Because now he has to call his buddy or somebody
Actually, what
else.
they did is they brought in 2 tow trucks, two to pull him out. And both those tow trucks, Colorado tow trucks, were 4-wheel drive.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they both together had to pull him out. He had a backhoe on the back of his trailer. It was the poor guy was so bogged down.
So it is pretty important.
It is in certain cases. But if you're only going to be on the highway, you know what I mean?
Like
if you're
long distance.
Long distance highway, and you want better economy and you want maximum towing, of course, rear drive is the way to go.
And of course, pound, if you're working, like we're talking about, right? Like hotshot business, right?
Yeah.
Carrying things, cars, transporting stuff. Every pound matters,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And maybe in that case, a 2-wheel drive would work.
Exactly.
So yeah, absolutely. So now let's touch on a 3/4 ton truck from GM, because this is a 2500s. And the other engine available, of course, in the heavy duties for GM is a gas engine, 401 horsepower and 464 pound-feet of torque. And for 2021, they left it alone, and they also left alone the 6-speed automatic that's in the gas, backing up the gas engine.
That is an older automatic, if I recall.
Yeah, it's, you know what? I wish they would have slapped a 10-speed in there. and be
Yeah,
like-
I'm curious if that's going to happen later,
So,
or if
yeah.
they have, maybe there's a packaging reason that they can't do that.
So hopefully, they also need maybe potentially to raise the output of the gas engine.
Well, to match that 7.3 that Ford builds at the very least.
Yeah, I would imagine. So that's just our
Our
feedback.
opinion. This
Yeah.
isn't so. Yeah, I'm sure there's other reasons.
Anyway, but for a 3/4 ton from GM, you can tow up to about 18,500 pounds with a gooseneck trailer. So this is almost half, actually, what a dually can do.
Wow. Okay. Well,
And the gas engine is a little bit lower.
Yeah, that
So if you're looking for a 3/4 ton truck, for example, you're not towing all the time, right? You want to bring some toys somewhere or some
Right.
trailers. You have to decide. You can get a gas-powered truck that will tow about 17,000, just less than that, or you can get a diesel 3/4 ton truck. It will tow about 18.5.
right.
If that's enough for you, great. Just do it.
Yeah.
Don't buy a dually. Because dualies are hard to park, they're long, they're big, they're heavy,
They're thirsty.
they're thirsty. So only I would recommend buying a dually, maybe if you have a giant fifth wheel trailer for stability, right?
Yeah.
Or if you're working.
Yeah.
say.
Or if you want to be a bro and put on those massive, really wide wheels and lift it like 8 feet in the air and be ridiculous, that's a great reason to have a dually as well.
I would agree.
Yeah, because we see a lot of those here.
Dude, those like 30-inch rims and like
It's-
tires that are about an inch thick.
Right. There's
Yeah.
absolutely no and then and they're sticking out like 4 inches on each side, 6 inches on each side. We actually had one. We did a video with one that a nice guy loaned us,
Yeah.
and it was just ridiculously wide and kind of useless.
So anyway, so that's kind of where you are. So those numbers are okay, but so let's move on to Ford, okay? And talk about the F350, 450, and 250 trucks. And for 2020, this was a truck with new powertrains, basically.
Right.
Now, of course, 2021, the powertrains remain the same. And so let's talk about that really quick. Three choices,
Right.
actually. 6.2 gas, that's been there forever.
Yep, that's their old one.
And Mr. Truck tested it. We tested it thoroughly everywhere. Now the new Godzilla.
Yeah, 7.3, which we have a lot of experience with. We actually had it in one of our project trucks for about a year.
Yeah, our F250 that we recently sold on TFLbids.com, by the
Yes,
way.
indeed, yeah.
And of course, there's a 6.7 liter diesel V8, which was redesigned in 2020. It's the latest generation. And oh boy, this new diesel is fast.
It's insane.
And it's efficient.
Yeah.
And it's also made it to a 10-speed automatic. This automatic is Ford in-house.
Yeah, so is the engine.
Yeah, so is the engine, right?
Yeah, it's all Ford.
And that's really interesting. I saw at a previous event the F-150 10-speed right next to, on a stand, right next to a Super Duty 10-speed. And the Super Duty 10-speed is physically larger. I mean, it's not the same transmission.
I would imagine every
just-
component on
yeah.
it is beefed up significantly.
Yeah, and it's beefed up because the Ford diesel is rated at 475 horsepower, so about 30 more horses than GM, and 1,050 pound-feet of torque.
Damn.
So they weren't the first to go over 1,000 pound-feet of torque.
Yeah.
Ram was, but they are now over that.
Yes, well over that.
And of course the 10-speed. And their rating for an F450, which is consumer-based truck, which is a one-ton truck.
Yes.
I have to be very specific with my words.
Yeah, because there are some people who have an issue with that.
Yeah, and a lot of people have issues with this. The F450 truck, technically Ford has two versions of it. They have one for consumers. You can get them in like very luxurious, limited
Full-
interiors,
yeah, yeah.
four doors, four-wheel drive, and then they have a commercial chassis, 450s. We're not talking about the chassis.
Right.
Only talking about the consumer trucks. And the F450s actually have slightly bigger hubs with 10 lug bolts. This truck is rated at 37,000. So 1,000 pounds more than the GM truck.
Okay.
And F350, if you want to compare, right? F350 also two-door, two-wheel drive, 35,750, right below the GM truck. So now, now each manufacturer can say their best.
Right, and that's what's really important here, guys. We know that apples to apples is very difficult nowadays because they're cutting the pie thinner and thinner, and they're trying to find new places to insert themselves. So when you're looking at the 3500 versus the F350, 3500 does have a slight edge, but the 450, which is you can buy as a regular consumer, and it is a regular truck, so to speak. Technically speaking, it is more capable in terms of its maximum towing.
Yeah, and now let's go back to that crew cab four-wheel drive situation, right? Because that's what we're comparing also. Ford, wow. So Ford is listing their F350 crew cab four-wheel drive at 34,700. That's like 3,500 pounds more than the GM.
That is crazy. And the thing is we have experience with the Ford diesel, and I think you and I both agree it's a rocket. It is so overpowered.
Yeah, and that's good when you have 34,000 pounds behind because you need to maintain that speed, right? You need to accelerate.
Right.
And of course, all these trucks we're talking about have exhaust brakes. So they have beefy brakes. Of course, we're talking about crazy numbers. Like if you just think about it, that a trailer, if it weighs 34,000, for example, and the truck itself weighs, 8,500 pounds?
Give or take, yeah.
The trailer is like 4 times more heavy than the truck.
Right.
So talk about the tail wagging the dog.
Well, if you look at tow ratings of full, tractor trailer vehicles from 30 years ago, those numbers are very close.
Yeah.
I mean, it's insane what you could drive these trucks as commuter vehicles and then put on a trailer that's over 35,000 pounds and tow it somewhat efficiently. And it's got a warranty and air conditioning and airbags and, massaging seats in some cases. It's ridiculous. It's crazy.
Yeah,
I'm
totally.
sorry, I endeavor it.
No, I absolutely agree. And also, I know a lot of people listening and watching are probably saying, is it safe? Is it, dangerous? Well, all of these manufacturers are complying with the standard.
Which is
standards.
SAE.
Yeah, SAE, Society of Automotive Engineers, J2807. It's a standard for testing. Includes stuff like, how do they deal in heat, pulling up Davis Dam, which is in Arizona and Nevada area.
It's a pretty steep grade.
Steep grade also in high temperatures. How you stop, how you turn. And also if you can hold the weight stationary on a slope. And Tommy actually did a great video about this on TFL Truck.
Right.
So, so you can learn more about it, how it's being tested. So they test them properly, and obviously they rate them. So obviously there's a level of safety built in. But you have to have skill to drive this. Well,
which is why you have to get a CDL to go to a certain weight and keep records and be safe.
So far, Ford is up there.
Yeah, they are, but Ram is competing as well.
Yes, and Ram. Let's get to Ram in 1 second, because let's touch on the F250 really quick.
Oh yeah.
Before we move on, so F250 truck, which is a 3/4 ton. Is rated at conventional trailer up to about 20,000 pounds, so a little bit more than GM. And fifth wheel for an F250 is at 22,800, and this is diesel trucks.
Right.
Talking about diesel. If you want to get a gas engine, if you don't want to pay that premium, about $8,000 or to $10,000 for a diesel engine, right? You have to pay up front.
Yes.
When you purchase the truck. If you don't want to do that, the gas F250 will do about 19,500. Still crazy numbers still.
Crazy numbers. And it's interesting, we get a lot of people asking us about diesel versus gas. And I think that 3/4 of the people out there, as long as they're not towing professionally, will be more than happy with a gas engine, at least for right now, while both gas and diesel are so damn cheap in this state, or in this country, I should say.
Yeah. And I would also say if you're not traversing mountains, I think that all of these V8s are very powerful.
They're all extremely well made now.
Now, if you're traversing mountains, let's say you live in the Rocky Mountain region or Appalachian regions, some other places, then if you're driving heavy trailers over those regions regularly, I would say a diesel is better because you have an exhaust brake, right? You have more torque, more power. So
also, long distance, you're getting better efficiency. So if people are doing thousands and thousands of miles per year, then they will get their money back eventually, by doing the premium on diesels for long range.
Yeah, and also diesels may require some extra maintenance too.
Well, that's the thing; they're more expensive to maintain.
And buy.
Yeah. So it's an interesting trade-off. But Mr. Truck would say, if you're a professional, diesel's the only way to go. But for a lot of regular Joes out there like me, who occasionally tows, gas is usually the best way to go.
I would say that because you don't have to worry about maybe fuel filters as much,
or DEF, or any of that
or
stuff.
DEF, right? And also expensive oil changes.
Oh yeah,
oil changes are very expensive.
Just maintenance alone. I mean, just replacing certain components on diesels because you have to have a diesel mechanic can be very expensive.
Yep. So then let's move on to Ram.
Yes.
So Ram is here, and they're not to be left on the side.
Well, they were the first ones to get to that 1,000 pound-feet of torque.
Yeah.
And then Ford said, excuse me.
Right. And Ford said, excuse me, about a year ago. Mm-hmm. And now Ram says, excuse
me?
Yes, they did. So, of course, Ram is using a Cummins engine still. So straight six. So this is a different engine because the other guys are using V8s.
Right.
Straight six, this engine's been around for many, many years. It's the latest generation.
Yeah, but which has been significantly upgraded.
Yeah, recently, I think 2019 is the last time.
You did a really comprehensive video on all the upgrades on that.
I think we even talked to engineers in like Detroit Auto Show.
You talked to those engineers, and I think that you were sitting on their lap while they were talking to you and cuddling.
No.
Yeah,
Nobody was
but I mean, it was a very detailed conversation. I remember that video.
Yeah. So they just boosted their power rating on the Cummins. This is a 6.7 liter, of course. They went up to 1,075 pound-feet of torque.
25 more than Ford.
Yes. That was not an accident, I don't think.
No, it wasn't. Of course not.
And 420 horsepower. So there's still, on horsepower, they're behind. Right, so the horsepower rating is lower than the Duramax on the GM, and it's lower than the Ford, but the torque is now the highest.
Right, and I'm sure the argument would be, well, torque is what you're looking for, and I'm one to agree. Torque is what tears trees out of grounds.
Yeah, and also we've driven all these trucks, obviously, and I mean not 2021s, but just 2020s. And the Ram always sounds to me like the truckiest one.
Yeah.
It's a tiny bit louder, but good loud, like a big rig, right? You could hear the exhaust brake kick on a little bit more. It just kind of snorts and powers up. You know, and it's just really manly.
All three of them have very, very different, the diesels I'm referring to, all three of them have a different sound, a different feel, and just a different personality. They really do. Very different engines.
But they're getting more and more refined, like as the years go on.
Oh, big time. Yeah, they're so much easier to drive nowadays. Just go back 10 years and drive a diesel compared to it today, and it's a completely different feeling. Completely different feeling.
I think the really good test of like the sound, if you can pull into a drive-through and don't have to shut off your engine to talk, I think that's the key, right?
Yeah, especially we did a video a long time ago where we tried to take a dually through a drive-through. Remember that?
We did. Yeah, and it was a success.
It was a success, but you were freaking out.
Yeah.
Your knuckles were white.
Well, because I had to like hug this corner, I have to go around. I think I touched both curbs with my tires. Yeah,
and it was like a $75,000 truck or something like that.
Yeah, it was like a Denali or something.
Yeah,
it was like
ridiculous.
a GMC.
Sorry, once again I digress, but that's worth keeping in mind if you get a dually.
It's all good. And then there was a lot of rumors, and of course we were part of it too, that Ram was going to change transmissions. Right?
Yeah, we heard a whole bunch of different rumors.
Yeah, so we got some information also from some anonymous source with what seemed to be credible information that Ram was considering either ZF, automatic transmissions, or even Allison,
Right.
But proper, like Allison 9-speed. Anyway, for 2021, the Ram has still the same transmission, which is a 6-bit Ison. And this is a very proven transmission. It's been around for years. So actually, as far as I know, after all the testing that we've done, these transmissions are pretty solid. I haven't heard a lot of bad stuff about these heavy-duty transmissions. And I'm talking about diesel transmissions.
Right.
I'm not talking about like other,
the
gas
engine,
engine,
right.
basically. So so Ram said, okay, Ford, you're 37,000. Well, we're gonna go up to 37,100 pounds. Once again, not an accident, I don't think. So they rated their, let me switch my view to a Ram.
Yeah, now while you're doing that, the question is, how do they do that? How do they get up to an additional 100 pounds?
Right. Or actually, they stepped up for 35.1. So they actually boosted themselves 2,000.
2,000, wow.
To leapfrog, right? So they leapfrogged both GM and Ford.
Right.
And I think a lot of it also has to do with suspension. And I gotta bring this up because payload is very important. So everybody, and I have just focused on towing numbers, right?
Right.
But you cannot forget payload because as soon as you overload your rear axle, bad things will happen, right?
Well, braking, balance, safety in general. I mean,
Too
all
much
of those.
squat, yes,
right.
all that stuff. So when you're buying one of these trucks, you can focus a lot on the 37.1, but if about 15% of it goes onto your truck, right?
Right.
In this case, it was like 6,000 or 7,000 pounds. If your truck is not rated for 7,000 pounds of tongue weight, you can't go anywhere. Basically.
No, what you're doing is it's become a very dangerous truck to drive.
Yeah, and you have to look at axle ratings,
right?
Which is called Gower gross axle weight ratings from both front and rear, gross vehicle weight ratings, gross combined weight ratings,
right?
And I think that's another show, probably.
That is a lot of stuff, but the point is that with these larger trailer loads, the question is, did they actually upgrade their payload numbers as well?
Yeah, and the answer is no.
So that is a big question mark.
So you have to be very precise. When you're buying one of these trucks, look in the door, in the sticker, look at the payload rating, ask the salespeople, make sure everybody's aware of this because, it's very easy to buy a truck, somehow without too much research sometimes.
Right.
And then go home and figure out, oops, I don't have enough payload or something else has just happened.
And what's crazy is that it could be something as simple as your wheel and tire package.
Or the rear differential.
Or your rear diff, or even whether or not you got a luxury package. Everything matters when it comes to payload as well. So, make sure your payload and your towing numbers match up with what you need before you buy the damn truck.
Yeah, and of course, when you're towing commercially, you have to run over scales all the time.
All the time, yeah, that's right.
So, and I would recommend, even if you're not commercial, if you're towing a camper or something, it also helps to know exactly how you're distributed, right? How the weight is. And it's pretty simple. I mean, you can go to any truck stop. It's about $11 to actually get a weight measurement.
I think we average doing that twice a month now? I think on average.
Yeah, we go
there a lot.
Stops,
they should know us by now because we go to one specific one almost all the time.
Oh, I think in Hudson, they're like, oh, it's this guy.
It's these losers.
Yeah.
With the stupid cameras.
Anyway, so Ram is going up there. And now let's talk about crew cab four-wheel drive.
Yeah.
Ram is rated for 2021, 34,120. So they're just a hair under Ford's crew cab four-wheel drive rating. Within 580 pounds approximately. So those are big numbers still.
They are indeed. So everybody's up their game for 2021, basically.
Yes.
But what's unusual about all this is that perhaps they forgot to upgrade their payload numbers. In some cases.
But see, they're doing certain things like GM talked about suspension and wheels.
Right.
Ford hasn't changed their rating in a while, right? Ram talked to some suspension components, so they're not leaving it alone, and they're also redesigning not just suspensions, but actual hitches.
Yes.
and hitch balls and all those components.
Yeah, we should cover that too.
Yeah, because specifically Ram mentioned it in their information, that now if you're buying their Gooseneck Hitch, which is basically underneath your bed,
Right.
in the center, almost in the center of your bed, so where you can mount your ball. And of course, for these weights, you need a 3-inch diameter ball, not smaller balls that are rated at lower weights.
Right.
And then if you put a fifth wheel in there, that whole box, that kind of the box that's
It's like a subframe that sort of sits on its own into your bed on top of,
it's reinforced. I
Right.
mean, they reinforce that stuff in the frame. So they're thinking about all the components, not just one or two.
Right.
So, but as far as I know, the payload numbers had not come up from previous years. So they're slightly boosting their towing numbers, chasing that number. But I think payload, of course, is very important.
Indeed.
By the way, they're mostly between about 7,400 pounds to about 7,600 pounds maximum. So that's kind of the weights we're talking about.
But once you add four-wheel drive and everything else, those numbers drop drastically.
Yeah, we've had several crew cab trucks with about 5,500 pound payload ratings.
Yeah, I remember.
So that's important. Finally, Ram 2,500, 3/4 tons. Conventional rating for towing is about 19,680, so right under 20,000 pounds. That's still competitive where Ford is for conventional towing, a little bit more than GM. And the gas engine is about 2,000 pounds under that, at about 17,540. So once again, diesels, even though they're heavier, are rated for higher loads.
Right, right. Now, the one thing about the Ram, their gas engine, I believe, is the oldest amongst the powertrains we're talking about right now, right?
I
the
think
old
so.
Hemi.
I think it's a 6.4 liter Hemi.
Right.
The
around for a
rating
while.
hasn't changed.
You're right.
I think you and I tested the Power Wagon, 5 or 6 years ago with this very similar engine.
Right.
410 horsepower is their rating. And I've been wondering about this because, Godzilla came out, right?
Right, right.
And Godzilla is rated at
The Ford 7.3 liter.
Yeah, the Ford engine. That engine is rated at 430. And I keep waiting for Ram or GM, in fact, to up their ratings.
Well, GM does have a brand new V8. That's 6.6. That's been.
Yeah, but it's 401 horse.
I know. But the point is that it's still it's got new tech.
Yeah,
and it's, you know what I mean?
yes, yeah.
Whereas the Hemi is really old tech by comparison. So, yeah, I agree with you. Where is the horsepower fight in this?
And also, what's curious is that, a lot of you guys keep asking us, where are the big block engines? Right.
Well,
Ford said the Godzilla is kind of quote unquote big block. What that means is the spacing between cylinders grows, right?
Right. Which is
But
better for durability and whatnot.
cooling and all that stuff,
Right.
GM used to have a 8.1, right? The big engine.
Yeah.
Ram, used to have a V10 gas engine.
So did Ford at one point too,
yeah.
by the way.
Yeah. So it's curious that they're not chasing those power numbers there.
Well, there may be a couple things to that. I know that the CAFE numbers do not matter for heavy-duty trucks, at least currently. But perhaps they're looking down the road and they're trying to think about ways of making the engines as powerful, but making them more efficient. So, that's entirely possible. Still, it's curious to see, it's a very competitive segment. And gas engines, obviously Ford thinks they're pretty important, because not only are they doing the 7.3, but rumor has it they're working on something that's even beefier.
Yeah, and maybe used in other trucks too.
Right.
To mention Ram again, they have the Hemi, the old Hemi, is made it to an 8-speed now.
Right.
So they upgraded the transmission actually, which was actually pretty clever because you're using different ratios, right, in the transmission to match it to older engine. I think it also has to do with reliability, right? When a fleet manager comes to you and says, I want to buy 100 trucks and I want to know that, they're solid. You could say, hey dude, look, this Hemi has been around, it's proven that you can maintain it. Blah,
And
blah,
now we
blah.
have it hooked up to a new transmission. And although they do have an 8-speed, which is standard throughout all of their half-ton trucks, this is a different 8-speed. It's a much beefier.
Yeah, once again, it's a heavy-duty truck. So
Right.
yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I think there may be some more room in the gas engine, heavy-duty gas engine wars, right? There is a little bit more space that they can play with right there. But I think these weights are getting I mean, what's next? 40,000 pounds?
Well, it's got to be. I'd say in 10 years there's going to be a truck that will be able to pull 40,000 pounds.
At least.
Nuts.
I mean, yeah. I mean, as materials improve, like steel improves, right? The quality of the materials, maybe aluminum bodies, right?
Making the trucks lighter, more advanced, and at the same time with beefier components. Yeah, you might be able to get there.
Yeah, this is going to be very interesting. And of course, I can't wait to start testing these again. And also, we've been asking manufacturers to send us more basic trucks.
Yeah.
Not the fully, $90,000 rigs that sometimes they do send us.
More often than not.
Yeah, and also that brings up another question for our gauntlets. It's actually kind of difficult to find trailers and loads for this. Remember this? I'm showing on, if you're watching this. Oh,
yeah.
I'm showing a 2015 test that we put a half track, World War II half track.
Yeah, proper half track. And I got to tell you, that was the ordeal of getting that on there. It looks great. It looks fantastic. And the weight was perfect, too. But getting the half track onto the trailer was one of the toughest things TFL has ever had to do. It also meant that I had to actually go to the hospital because I screwed up my leg.
You were sacrificing everything. You left nothing on the table.
We left nothing on the table. And we also almost got burnt up because I kept squirting starter fluid into the carb because it wasn't getting gas. And
it wasn't running.
You can't push a half track, with men up onto a trailer.
No.
So we kind of got it halfway up there by doing this, by squirting, and it kept flaming up. Finally, we were able to get it high enough to where we were able to take a winch and pull it up the rest of the way onto the trailer. But that was a real difficult thing to do. And that's one of the hard things for us is actually, especially with the heavy duty tows, finding a sufficient load that we can replicate again and again and again to make sure that these comparisons are as equal as possible.
Yeah, and we did all this work. We have videos of this, by the way.
Tons of work.
So loading this trailer, it was a lot of fun. I think it was, well, not you hurting your leg.
Yeah.
But I think it was kind of like, like a bonding moment. All of us were together.
It was great because that was early days of doing the Ike Gauntlet. That was, I think, our second or third year doing it.
And still, after all this work, we were at about 22 or 23,000 combined.
Right.
Wait.
With a half track.
Yeah. So we need to find another 10 or 12,000 pounds.
Yeah. So and that's the tough part. And actually, what you guys don't see on camera, although occasionally they show behind the scenes, is that the logistics just to get Ike Gauntlets together is absolutely just mind-boggling. Andre and often Mr. Truck have to go out a day or even two before and find the loads, create the loads, put in water totes, secure them. There's so many things that are required. To do these heavy-duty ones takes even more work and even more logistical support is required. And that's one thing that I admire because I don't have to do it. Andre does. I am thrilled that you enjoy doing it because I wouldn't be able to handle doing that often.
Yeah, and I do enjoy it, but and so I think one of the solutions is obviously we have to have a gooseneck trailer.
Yeah.
Maybe even a longer one, a little bit heavier one, and maybe put like a backhoe. Some of those excavators and backhoes actually are very heavy.
Yeah, very dense material.
So they don't look that heavy sometimes, but they have giant tires and lots of steel.
Or big treads,
Or treads even. Yeah. So maybe that's a good answer because hopefully we don't have to put lighter fluid in one of those. And
well, didn't we do two at one point, two little ones?
We took two little backhoes, and we've done an excavator from Cat, actually.
Right, that was last year.
Yeah.
So, we're looking to do that. And that's actually going to happen pretty soon. We like to do it all within a short amount of time to make sure that the elements are somewhat similar for the testing.
Yeah, and also it would be great to do this. First of all, we have to get all the trucks lined up, right?
Yeah.
But also, like in the spring or summer, maybe like April, May, June, because we can't do it in the snow. That's very difficult logistically.
It's snow is such a difficult thing for us to fight
because like right
against.
now it's snowing, right?
Yeah, we couldn't do it right now. It'd be really dangerous, and also it's not fair to the manufacturer if we're doing it in snow where it could slip and have difficulty. So obviously it's something that we wait for spring. I think we try to average spring is early spring is what we've been doing. I think.
Yeah, but oftentimes we want to be first, as always, and we've been pushing it a little bit too much, maybe, in waiting for those windows where it stops snowing and it melts. The roads are clear, even though the snow is on the mountains, of course.
Yeah.
But that's very stressful. It's just a little bit too much.
It is, and what you guys don't see is that our staging area is in a parking lot that has a really steep grade to get out of. So we've, on more than one occasion, had real issues getting out of those parking lots and getting up onto the road when it's been slippery.
Yeah, so we would need to maybe readjust those staging areas. Because in case we don't get a four-wheel drive truck, for example.
Well, yeah,
right?
if that's the case.
So we have to readjust that.
Which we've done before.
Anyway, yeah. So anyway, it's going to be a lot of fun in 2021.
Yeah, so yet another thing to look forward to in 2021. The Ike Gauntlet and the fact that we are going to be testing heavy-duty trucks this year because they are all beefer. Beefer. I said beefer, not beefy. They're all beefier this year. All of them have improved numbers.
And also, I still want to do the MPG loop too. I mean,
I know you're excited about that.
Well, because it's real world, right? And
right.
You will not see a lot of this data published, especially with the heavy weights.
Yeah,
right?
actually, very few people actually put out numbers for these heavy trucks. So we have somewhat of a standardized test that we do, and we've been doing it for a while. And it's not perfect, but it's real world, so you can get a pretty good idea of how efficient these trucks are.
And I have something else.
Yes.
Something that I cannot fully kind of announce yet because we haven't really signed the agreement. But we're also talking to a company that provides diagnostics. So actually like real-time monitoring on these trucks. So we could even make it even more measurable, comparable, actually get the data as we're doing it.
So the people who watch us can learn even more about the trucks because of us.
Yes.
I like that.
And I will announce once we get it finalized. We'll talk about who.
Yeah. So we can't tell you anymore.
Yeah, I'm sorry, we haven't finished that yet. So anyway, there you have it.
Guys, thank you so much for joining us. We hope you enjoyed it, and stay tuned because we will have another podcast coming soon.
Yeah, and let us know and give us feedback.
Please,
either in
yes.
the comments here or on YouTube or whatever.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
See you next time.